What I want to talk about on this video is on how simulations are a great tool for educational purposes in order for you as a manager of any system to understand your own processes. So what I've seen a lot happening in the last year with many of my projects is that the simulation becomes a challenger of the ideas a person, which can be a client or a manager, has about their own system. It challenges their ideas in a way that it shows clearly that sometimes they don't even understand their own systems, or they have misconceptions about their own systems, and the simulation clearly shows that and becomes this tool that allows them to learn about what is going on. Or even more, it forces them to go back and understand their own processes in more detail. So in order to show this, I will use 3 simulation models I found in the cloud in order to symbolically represent what happened in my own business cases that I cannot show because of privacy issues. So let's get started with the first one. But I will definitely put the links to these simulation models in the description box of this video in order to give credit to the authors of them. Okay, so let's get started with these examples. So this simulation is very similar to the one I did, in which there was a warehouse and there were multiple trucks coming to this warehouse to pick up pallets that had different characteristics. If we use colors, let's imagine that we had black pallets according to the data I got, but the trucks got stuck in the warehouse because there was no black pallet available to pick up. So when I talked to the client about this, they said, oh no, your simulation is wrong because obviously we have black pallets in there. But what ended up happening is that we discovered that the black pallets were following a completely different process compared to all the other ones. And the manager of the system didn't even know this. So we need to go back and understand what these black pallets were doing and change the simulation accordingly. So what the manager learned here was about this mysterious process that was going on with some of the products. Okay, let's go to the second example. On this model, we see a manufacturing line that is very similar to the one I did, where many products were processed and then they needed to decide to which conveyor to go in order to process it in a different way. The selection of the conveyor was very important, and I received the algorithms that were required in order to do this. The manufacturing process in general was pretty efficient, and they wanted to improve their efficiency. And when I did the simulation efficiency was way lower than the real system. And again, they told me, your simulation is wrong, fix it. But what we ended up discovering is that the algorithms or processes that were provided to me were not aligned with what was really happening in the manufacturing line. This was a huge learning point for the owner of the system, who thought the processes were one way, but they were not the way he thought. So we ended up reviewing this, understanding the process better, and implementing it in the simulation with a simulation that ended up being very close to what the system was really doing. Now, let's go to the third example. On this third example, we have a very similar process in which things are discharged from a vessel and put in a position in the docks. So when I did the simulation was showing a way better performance than what was expected based on the data that we had on the berth operations. So again, for the third time, they told me, your simulation is wrong, fix it. But what we ended up discovering is that the data that was entered into their own ERP system was actually corrupted by the very people who were entering this data. So when we discovered this and corrected the information, we saw that the simulation model was doing exactly what was expected based on the corrected data. So in here we discovered, or the manager was able to see a misinterpretation of the data, and correcting this data was a very important element in order to validate what was really happening in the docs. They thought the processes were inefficient because of the data that was collected, but the simulation showed efficiency, and then they discovered that the situation was quite efficient in the first place. So here we have three examples of moments in which simulation models acted as a tool for managers of systems to understand their own systems beyond what they thought they understood in the first place. The simulation sometimes shows very clearly that there are things that are not understood perfectly from the managers, or corrupted data, or anything that allows the person who is doing the simulation to understand what is going on with their processes and with their systems. So I wanted to show this in order to prove another point in which simulations are of extreme value. And that's it for now. See you in a future video.